I've always believed that people don't just fall out of love, they drift, quietly, in ways you don't notice until you wake up one ordinary morning and realize the distance between you is no longer me. Surable in words, but in silence. That morning for me happened on a Thursday at 6:47 a.m. in a kitchen that still smelled of the coffee I didn't drink. My name is Michael Hart, 46 years old, senior analyst at Redwood Financial, husband of 17 years, and as of that Thursday, a man who finally understood that the life he thought he'd built wasn't only cracked but hollowed from the inside. It started with a phone. Not mine. Hers. Rachel left it on the counter. She never leaves it anywhere. She's the kind of woman who keeps everything aligned, polished, invisible. But that morning she rushed out for her run, her hair still damp from the shower, her breath clipped and uneven like she hadn't slept well. I watched her tie her shoes with shaking hands, but I didn't ask what was wrong. We weren't asking each other much these days. When the door clicked shut, I looked at the phone. I didn't pick it up. Not at first. I don't snoop. I never have. Trust was something we built early and relied on heavily. But there's a difference between trust and blindness, and somewhere along the line, I let her convince me they were the same thing. A message lit up the screen. Same place tonight. Usual time. No name. Just that. My chest tightened, not in panic but in something much quieter. Something like recognition. She'd had work dinners 3 nights in the past 2 weeks. Meetings that ran suspiciously late. Exhaustion that didn't look like exhaustion but like someone trying to rehearse a story they weren't ready to tell. I didn't open the message. I didn't need to, because I already knew the place. The Green Door, a hotel bar near her office, dim, upscale, the kind of place where secrets go to drink. I stared at her phone until the screen went black. Then I left it exactly where it was and walked out. The office smelled of toner and cold air. Financial reports stacked themselves on my desk like obituaries for a life that had stopped feeling like mine a long time ago. People moved around me. Phones rang, keyboards clicked, deals were made over coffee. And I felt nothing. I didn't work that day. Not really. I stared at spreadsheets until the lines blurred. At 11:22 a.m., Grant Thompson, my boss, tapped on the edge of my cubicle. "You free for a minute?" he asked. Grant is the type of man who radiates confidence even when he's full of shit. Clean haircut, expensive watch, perpetual half-smile that makes you feel like he knows something you don't. I followed him into his office. He closed the door and leaned against his desk. "There's talk," he said. "About what?" "About the Harper acquisition." My stomach tightened. The Harper deal was sensitive, highly confidential, and way above my pay grade. But I'd been asked to review certain transactions last week, unusual ones. "What kind of talk?" I asked. He studied me for a long, uncomfortable second. "Your review flagged some irregularities," he said. "Large transfers, misaligned timestamps." "I reported them," I said. "That's protocol." "Yes." A pause. "But the question being raised is why you accessed those files in the first place." I blinked. "Because you told me to." He didn't nod. He didn't smile. He just held my gaze. "Did I?" he asked, a slow, deliberate question, a warning hidden beneath it. I felt something shift in the air, a current, subtle but unmistakable. "Grant," I said quietly, "don't do this." He sighed and pushed off the desk, walking behind me to close the blinds. That's when I knew. This wasn't a conversation. This was a setup. "You need to be careful with what you access," he said. "People are watching." "Who?" "People who don't appreciate curiosity." I felt a pulse of cold move down my spine. He opened the door again, mask back in place. "We'll talk later." I stepped out. But the office felt different, colder, like something had already been decided long before I entered the room. At 4:06 p.m. I received an email from an internal compliance officer I'd never heard of. "Mandatory meeting. Tomorrow morning. Topic: unauthorized data access." My mouth went dry. unauthorized. Someone was rewriting the narrative. Someone wanted me compromised. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the email until the words warped. And then something else hit me. Rachel's message. The meeting tonight. What if her late-night gatherings weren't just about an affair? What if it was connected? What if her distance wasn't emotional, but strategic? A horrifying possibility formed in the back of my mind, so sharp it felt like a blade. What if Rachel wasn't lying to me because of another man? What if she was lying because she was part of something else entirely? I stared at our wedding photo on my desk. The one where she leaned her head against mine, smiling softly. Eyes full of a tenderness I hadn't seen in years. I couldn't reconcile that woman with the woman who left. That message on her phone. At 5 o'clock I grabbed my coat and walked out before anyone could stop me. I knew where I was going. The green door smelled like whiskey, perfume, and secrets. Low jazz hummed through the speakers, and dim amber lights flickered across polished wood. I took a seat in a corner booth, heart pounding slow and heavy. At 6:18 p.m., she walked in. Rachel, my wife, hair tied back, coat clutched closer on her, eyes scanning the room in a way that made my stomach twist. She wasn't looking for a lover. She was looking for someone dangerous, someone she feared or obeyed. She saw him before I did. A man in a charcoal suit approached, not smiling, not touching her, just gesturing for her to follow. She did, no hesitation. They sat in a far booth, just barely visible. I leaned back, breath frozen. Rachel took out a folder. He took out his phone. They talked quietly but intensely. She looked, afraid, not of me, of them. When she slid the folder across the table, something inside me cracked, not because I thought she was cheating, but because I understood something far worse. My wife was involved in something she couldn't walk away from. And whatever she was doing, it had everything to do with me. The man reached into his pocket and handed her a small flash drive. My heart stopped. She closed her hand around it, held it like it was a weapon or evidence. My mouth went dry as the man stood and left without looking back. Rachel waited a full minute, breathing fast, hands trembling. Then she slid the flash drive into her coat and whispered something to herself. I strained to see her face. She looked destroyed, broken, trapped. Then she stood and walked straight toward the exit, right past me. She didn't see me. Or maybe she didn't want to. I waited 10 seconds, then followed her out into the cold night air. She walked fast, pulling her coat tighter, glancing over her shoulder as if someone might be following her. I stayed in the shadows, watching the woman I used to know unravel under the streetlights. When she reached her car, she froze, stared at the flash drive in her hand, then whispered. I could read her lips, "I'm sorry." A moment later she slammed the door shut and drove off, tires screeching. I stood in the empty lot, heart pounding, breath sharp. Whatever she was doing, whatever she was hiding, it was about me, and it was only a matter of time before I found out why. I didn't sleep that night, not a minute, not a second. I lay in the dark beside Rachel, listening to her breath, shallow, uneven, like someone trapped inside her own body. She'd come home late, almost midnight, pretending nothing was wrong, pretending she hadn't just met a stranger in a hotel bar and exchanged a flash drive like it was contraband, pretending she wasn't falling apart. She didn't notice I was awake. Or maybe she did and didn't care. She slipped into bed without touching me, without looking at me, her back turned, her shoulders curved inward. She smelled faintly of cold night air and fear. I stared at the ceiling until dawn. At 5:54 a.m., her alarm went off. She flinched, sat up too fast, then rubbed her face with both hands as if trying to wipe something off her skin. "Morning," I murmured. She jumped slightly. "Oh, I didn't know you were awake. I've been up for a while." She nodded, not meeting my eyes. "Work today, big day. I need to be in early." Her voice wavered, like a violin string pulled too tight. When she got out of bed, her coat slid from the chair. Something small fell to the floor, a flash drive. Blacks, slim, identical. My pulse kicked. She froze when she saw it. For a second her face collapsed, panic, guilt, sorrow, before she quickly grabbed it and shoved it into her coat pocket. Rachel, I said quietly, what's going on? She didn't answer, didn't move, just stood there with her back to me, shoulders trembling. Is there something you want to tell me? A long silence. Then, in a tiny voice, not now, then when? She turned her head slightly. I could see the profile of her cheek, her lashes wet. When it's safe, she whispered. Safe. The word hit me like a blow. Safe from what? From who? Before I could ask, she hurried out, footsteps sharp and uneven. The front door closed with a hollow thud, and I sat there in the silence she left behind, realizing she wasn't only lying, she was protecting something, or someone, or me. By 8 a.m. I was in the office, but not at my desk. I hovered outside the compliance department, staring at the frosted glass door like it was the entrance to an execution chamber. The mandatory meeting, the accusation, the unauthorized access. My career, 17 years, was hanging by a thread someone else was holding. But I wasn't walking inside blind. Instead, I went upstairs to it. Ryan channeled me a favor. 2 years ago I helped him bury a financial reporting error that could have gotten him fired. He never forgot it. He was eating cereal out of a mug when I found him. Jesus, Mike, he said, lowering the mug. You look like hell. I need you to check something. Now? Now? He sighed, rolled his chair to a different keyboard, and cracked his knuckles. All right, what are we digging into? My access logs. He stopped. Your what? Why? Just do it. He typed quickly. Lines of data scrolled across the screen. Then he frowned. That's not right. What? According to this. He squinted. You accessed restricted Harper files yesterday evening? I wasn't even in the building yesterday evening. Yeah, I figured. But your credentials were. A chill crawled up the back of my neck. Ryan. Who used them? He hesitated. That's the thing. Whoever it was, they didn't mask it. They logged in with your IDs straight up. Why? He shrugged. Two possibilities. 1, they're sloppy. 2, they want you to take the fall. My hands curled into fists. Ryan, can you trace the device? He typed again fast, then blew out a long breath. Mike, the access came from inside the executive offices. The words hit like a punch. Executive offices. Grant's floor. My boss. The man who pretended not to remember assigning me the review. The man who warned me about curiosity. The man who closed his blinds before telling me to keep quiet. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't paranoia. Someone was setting me up, deliberately, surgically, and Rachel was tangled in it. Can you print this? I asked. Ryan hesitated. Mike, this is dangerous. I know. But he printed it anyway. I folded the report and slipped it inside my jacket, heart pounding. Today's meeting was no longer a threat. It was a battlefield. The compliance office was colder than the rest of the building, like they kept it intentionally uncomfortable. A woman with sharp glasses and an expression carved from stone gestured for me to sit. I placed the printed logs on the table before she even spoke. These files show someone accessed restricted data with my credentials. I said, not me. Someone on the executive floor. She stared at the papers, then at me. Where did you get this? Does it matter? It matters a great deal. Her tone was flat, unreadable. We have reason to believe, she said slowly, that data involved in the Harper acquisition has been leaked to external parties. I blinked. Leaked by who? That's what we're investigating. And I'm your suspect. You are one of them. My jaw tightened. What possible motive would I have? That's what we're here to understand. I exhaled slowly, forcing my voice to stay level. Look, someone is using my ID. Someone who wants this to look like my mess. That alone should tell you. The door opened. Grant walked in. Smiling. Double quotes. Good morning, he said pleasantly, taking the seat beside the compliance officer, as if this were nothing more than a status meeting. My stomach Drop. This wasn't an investigation. This was a performance. And Grant was the director. Michael, he said with false warmth. We just want the truth. The compliance officer nodded. Did you share your login credentials with anyone? No. Did you speak to anyone about your concerns with the Harper files? No. Did you transfer any internal data externally? No. Grant leaned forward, hands clasped. Then how do you explain the access? He asked. I stared at him. Right into his eyes. I think you already know. Something flickered across his face, quickly masked, but I saw it. The compliance officer looked between us, sensing something she couldn't yet interpret. Grant's voice softened. Michael, you seem stressed. Maybe you're misremembering. Maybe you opened files unintentionally. People make mistakes. He was gaslighting me calmly, effortlessly, like he'd done it before. My heart hammered so hard my vision wavered. I want legal present, I said. That made him pause. Just a second, but enough. The compliance officer closed her folder. We'll reconvene later today. Grant stood. Of course. Whatever makes Michael comfortable. He touched my shoulder as we left the room, a friendly gesture, a warning disguised as kindness. His breath close to mine. Stop digging. Then he walked away. I left the building shaking, not from fear, from clarity. Grant wasn't just involved. He was orchestrating something massive. And Rachel, she was connected to it, whether willingly or otherwise. I didn't know yet. But I knew this someone was going to destroy me to protect themselves, and my wife was caught in the middle, or maybe she was part of the plan. I drove home on autopilot, mind burning with questions. When I reached the house, I noticed something immediately. Rachel's car was still in the driveway. She hadn't gone to work. I walked inside. She was sitting at the kitchen table, hands clasped tight, eyes red and swollen. When she looked up at me, her face broke. I can't do this anymore, she whispered. Do what? She reached into her coat pocket and placed the flash drive on the table. Her hand shook. They're going to ruin you, she said. And I think it's my fault. My breath froze in my chest. Rachel, I said carefully, what's on that drive? She looked at me with terror and something else. Regret, shame, resolve, proof, she whispered. About the company, about Grant, about everything. I stared at her. And she stared back. We were no longer husband and wife. We were two people standing on the edge of a cliff with no way back. She pushed the flash drive toward me. Michael, we need to run. I didn't touch the flash drive at first. It sat between us like a loaded gun, small, silent, lethal. Rachel's fingers withdrew slowly, as if letting go of it meant letting go of the last piece of safety she had left. Her eyes wouldn't settle. They kept flicking to the window, the hallway, the front door, like she expected someone to burst in at any moment. Run, I repeated, barely able to grasp the word. Rachel, what the hell are you involved in? She flinched. You think I wanted this? You think I planned any of it? Her breath hitched. I made one mistake, one, and he never let me forget it. But I already knew. Grant. Her lips trembled as she nodded. It started almost a year ago, before the Harper deal even existed. The room seemed to shrink on us. I sat down across from her, hands flat on the table. Tell me everything. She stared at the flash drive like it was burning a hole through the wood. Grant knew something about me, she whispered. Something from before we met. Something I never told you. She paused, swallowed hard. He used it to control me. My stomach twisted. Rachel, no, she said quickly, lifting her hand. It's not. It's nothing criminal. Nothing like that. But it's enough to ruin my career. And he made sure I understood that. The air between us felt heavy, pressurized, like the moment before an explosion. What did he make you do? I asked her. She hesitated for so long I thought she wouldn't answer. Then she whispered, he made me pass information. I slid down my spine. Information about me? I asked. At first, no. Her voice cracked. It was harmless things. Company gossip. Who was working on what? Who was close to getting promoted? Who was unhappy? Just leverage. That was how it always began. Small compromises, small cracks. And then? I asked. And then he realized you were becoming too cautious about the Harper deal. You were seeing numbers that didn't make sense, patterns, transfers that shouldn't have existed. Her eyes met mine. He asked me what you knew, what you suspected, what you were curious about. My pulse thudded in my ears, and you told him. She closed her eyes in shame. I didn't know what he was planning. I didn't think he would use it against you. I thought he'd just redirect you, redirect me. I almost laughed, a hollow, broken sound. He used my access. Rachel continued, voice barely audible. He had someone clone my badge. Then yours. He asked me to leave my laptop unlocked by mistake when I visited the office. And I did. Her throat trembled. I didn't know he was planting things on your credentials. I swear to God, Michael, I didn't know. The betrayal hit me differently than I expected. It wasn't anger. Not yet. It was grief. Grief for a life that had been rotting under the surface while I thought everything was stable. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I asked. Because once I realized what he was doing. She looked away. He said he'd go public with what he had on me. He said he'd make sure you believed I betrayed you intentionally. A humorless smile tugged at my mouth. You didn't think I deserved the truth. You were already in danger, she said, voice breaking. I didn't want to be the one to push you over the edge, so instead, I said softly, you let him use you to push me over. Her shoulders collapsed. Michael, I'm sorry. A whisper, a plea, a wound. I wanted to be furious, to yell, to break something, but the reality was larger than my anger. What's on the drive? I asked. Rachel pushed it closer with a trembling hand. Emails, bank transfers, internal memos, voice notes, enough to prove the Harper acquisition is a front. She swallowed. They're moving money offshore. Millions, maybe billions. My blood turned cold. And the leak? I asked. The thing compliance mentioned. It's not a leak, Rachel said. They're making it look like one. To blame you. To get rid of anyone who might expose the discrepancies. And you? I whispered. They promised I'd be safe if I kept quiet. Her voice faltered. But yesterday, Grant told me they don't need me anymore. A chill crept across my skin. They're tying loose ends, she whispered. Silence fell, suffocating. Total. Then the sound of tires outside. Rachel's head snapped toward the window. They're here, she breathed. I moved quickly, grabbing the flash drive. Who? I don't know, she said, panic rising. Grant sent someone. He said they just needed to talk, but Michael, her voice shook violently. They weren't going to let me walk away. A car door slammed, footsteps approached the house. We need to go, Rachel whispered. Now? I grabbed the keys, the flash drive burning in my fist. The doorbell rang, a long, echoing chime that felt like a countdown. We stared at each other, then Rachel mouthed, back door. We moved quietly, quickly, breath held, hearts pounding. The doorbell rang again, harder. Then a knock, slow, calculated, threatening. I opened the back door, letting Rachel slip out first. Cold air rushed in. The world outside felt suddenly vast and dangerous. As I stepped up behind her, I glanced back through the kitchen. A shadow moved past the frosted glass of the front door. Someone was out there, waiting, listening. We ran. We didn't look back. But even as we fled down the side of the house, something crawled over my spine, a feeling I couldn't shake. Whoever was at the door, they weren't here to knock. They were here to finish what Grant started. We didn't stop running until we were 3 blocks away, lungs burning, sweat cold on our skin. Rachel kept looking over her shoulder, every sound making her flinch. The early morning quiet felt wrong, too still, too expectant, like the world was holding its breath. We ducked behind a row of parked cars until we reached an alley behind a shuttered laundromat. Only then did we slow down. My heartbeat was a hammer in my throat. Rachel leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Her hands were shaking so violently she had to clench them into fists just to keep control. They knew, she whispered. Michael. They knew we'd run. I glanced at the street we'd come from. No one, no engines, no footsteps. But someone had been at the house. Someone confident enough to knock. Someone who didn't care who answered. Rachel, I said, forcing my voice steady, you need to tell me exactly what they want from us. From me. Her eyes darted up to mine, full of dread and something else, something like resignation. Not us, she said softly. They only want one thing, the drive. She nodded. And when they get it, we're done. I exhaled slowly, trying to process the weight of it. The flash drive felt heavier in my pocket than it should have, like a lead weight dragging me into a deeper darkness. All right, I said. Then we're not giving it to them. They'll kill us, maybe, I admitted. But giving it to them guarantees it. Her lips parted at that, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of the woman I married, scared. Yes, but strong in a way she never believed. What do we do? She asked. I didn't have an answer yet. But answers come when fear pushes you too far. First, I said, we need a place to hide. Somewhere Grant doesn't know about. There's no such place, she whispered. There is, I said quietly. My father's old workshop. Rachel looked up sharply. Michael, that place hasn't been used in years. Exactly. Heavy silence. Then she nodded. We kept walking, down a side street, through an overgrown park, past a rusted chain-link fence. My father's workshop sat on the edge of the industrial district, an old brick building with boarded-up windows and a broken sign that used to say, Cole and Sons Repairs. Named the place before he realized having children wasn't going to be part of his life. I hadn't been here in almost a decade, but the lock was still the same, old, stubborn, familiar. I forced it open and pushed the door inside. Cold air, dust, silence. Rachel stepped in behind me, hugging her arms to her chest. Jesus, Michael. It's safe, I said. She didn't argue. We sat at an old metal table covered in dried oil stains. I took up the flash drive and placed it between us. Rachel stared at it as if afraid it might move. Michael, she whispered, if we're caught with this, we won't be. You don't know that. No, I corrected. I know they're desperate, and desperate people make mistakes. She nodded once slowly, but her eyes told me she didn't believe it. I reached for my phone. No signal. Rachel's jaw tightened. They're blocking the area. Then they're close. A chill went through her. We can't stay here long, I know. I opened my laptop, a secondary machine I kept for freelance consulting. A clean device. No work apps. No company network. No tracking. Rachel's breath hitched. You're going to open it. We need to know what we're dealing with. Her hand shot out, grabbing my wrist. Michael, if you see what's inside, you become a target too. I looked at her. Rachel, I was a target the moment Grant walked into that meeting room. Something in her broke then. Her shoulders slumped. She released my wrist. I slid the flash drive into the port. A single folder appeared. Harper_Blackwater inside it. 57 emails, 12 audio files, multiple PDFs. An encrypted file labeled Final. I clicked on the first email. It opened to a thread between Grant and someone named Kessler, a name I didn't recognize. A few lines jumped out immediately. Move the funds after the acquisition announcement. Cole won't notice until it's too late. If compliance intervenes, blame the discrepancy on the admin error tied to his login. Then another. Rachel confirmed. He hesitates on the projections. Accelerate the timeline before he pulls external auditors. My breath caught. Rachel, I whispered. He was using you to track me. Her face crumpled. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I clicked the next email. This one made my blood turn to ice. Once Cole is removed, ensure she receives her severance quietly. Rachel swallowed hard. Severance. That's his word for silence. No wonder she'd been scared. We moved to the audio files next. I clicked the first. A voice, Grant's voice, filled the room, calm, controlled, venomous beneath the politeness. No, she won't be a problem. She understands the consequences. If she deviates, we'll make an example of her husband. He's morally rigid. Perfect leverage. I froze. Rachel's face went white. He said that, she whispered. About you. About us. Another audio file. Cole still thinks the projections are off. He'll try to talk to Harper directly. Discredit him as soon as he makes a move. Rachel covered her mouth. They were going to destroy you publicly. No, not were. I opened the last audio file. It began with footsteps. Then a door closing. Then Grant's voice. Make sure the two of them don't leave the house until this is resolved. Another voice, unfamiliar, deeper, replied. What if the husband resists? A pause. Then Grant said, use any means necessary. Rachel let out a quiet, broken sound. I didn't breathe. Any means necessary. They weren't sending someone to talk. They were sending someone to silence. Permanently. The floor outside creaked. Rachel's eyes went wide. We both froze. The creak came again, heavier this time. Someone was in the workshop, inside. With U.S. Rachel mouthed. Michael. I put a finger to my lips. Another creak. Slow, purposeful. Close. I reached for the nearest object, a heavy wrench on the table, and tightened my grip. Rachel's hand found mine under the table. Her fingers were ice cold. Voices murmured faintly somewhere near the front entrance. Two, at least. What do we do? She mouthed. I looked toward the back door, barely a door, more like an old frame with a loose hinge. A flimsy exit. But an exit? Then I whispered, barely audible. On my mark. The footsteps drew closer. Rachel's breath stuttered. Then a shadow passed under the doorway to the left. They were searching the rooms. Getting closer. Seconds away from finding us. I leaned close to her ear. Run, now. We bolted. Chairs scraped. Metal clattered. And behind us a voice shouted, stop. We didn't. We burst through the back door into the freezing air as the workshop exploded with noise, footsteps pounding. Shots echoing behind us. Rachel stumbled, but I grabbed her arm, pulling her forward. The alley behind the building was long and narrow. Nowhere to hide. And when I looked back, to men spilled out of the workshop after us. Dark jackets, gloves, purpose. They weren't here to talk. They were here to finish the job. The alley stretched ahead like a tunnel carved out of darkness, long, narrow, suffocating. My feet pounded against cold asphalt, Rachel's breath sharp and uneven beside me. Behind us, the men closed in fast, the rhythm of their steps echoing off the brick walls, turning the world into one relentless, accelerating heartbeat. Left, I hissed. We cut sharply around a dumpster, nearly slipping. The alley opened into a narrow service road behind a row of abandoned warehouses. Rows of shattered windows watched us like empty eyes. Rachel's voice trembled. Michael, I know. Keep going. Her hair whipped across her face as she pushed herself harder, fear driving her faster than she'd ever run. The footsteps behind us quickened. They were trained, coordinated, not improvising hunting. One of them shouted, they're heading east. I swore under my breath. They knew the area. They knew us. They'd corner us eventually unless we made a choice that terrified me even more. We had to stop running. We had to disappear. But vanishing takes more than fear. It takes intent. And the intent hadn't formed yet. Not fully, not until I saw the shadow of the industrial rail yard rising ahead. Tracks, empty freight cars, rusted machinery. A maze. I grabbed Rachel's arm and pulled her toward a narrow gap in the fence. In here. We squeezed through. The metal scraped my jacket, slicing through fabric, grazing skin. Rachel winced. Her hip caught on a sharp edge, but she kept moving. Inside, the rail yard stretched out in eerie silence. Fog rolled low across the ground, swallowing the bottom half of the world in a cold, gray blur. Where? She whispered. Anywhere, I said. Just stay low. We ducked behind a line of abandoned freight cars. The men reached the fence seconds later. Flashlights cut through the fog, slicing the darkness into trembling beams. Rachel pressed against my side, shaking. Michael, they're armed. I know. I don't want to die, she whispered. You won't. I didn't know if that was a promise or a prayer. The flashlights swept dangerously close. Voices carried. They went through here. Search every row. Rachel closed her eyes, jaw trembling. This is my fault. No, I whispered. Grant did this. Not you. But he used me. He used both of us. And in that moment, something changed in her eyes. A shift. A hardening. She wasn't the same woman who had trembled in our kitchen, apologizing through tears. She was someone who had been cornered, used, and threatened. And now she was done being afraid. What's the plan? She asked softly. We need proof, I said. Not just what's on the drive. Something bigger. Something that ties this to someone they can't silence. And then we take it to someone who's not afraid of Grat. Rachel nodded. Who? Someone outside the company. Outside the state. Someone who owes me a favor. She swallowed. A reporter. Not exactly, but I didn't elaborate. Not yet. It wasn't safe. The men's voices drew closer. Flashlights flicked across metal, illuminating dust and rust and the shapes of our shadows. We needed to move. I pointed toward the far end of the yard, a service shack half collapsed but still standing. We sprinted low, bodies pressed to the cars, our footsteps silent over the gravel. Once inside the shack, I shut the rotten door and slid a heavy iron bar across it. Rachel collapsed onto an overturned crate, breathing hard. I opened my laptop again and inserted the drive, hands shaking not from fear, but from adrenaline sharpening to something darker, resolve. I clicked on the encrypted file labeled final. It asked for a password. Rachel blinked. What now? We try everything, I said. Names, dates, account numbers, internal codes she remembered from conversations with Grant. Nothing worked. Then Rachel froze. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He never let me forget my mistake. What mistake? She hesitated, but only for a second. My sister, she whispered. He knew about her. He knew everything. She typed her sister's name. The file unlocked. My breath left my chest in one violent exhale. Inside was a single video, timestamped 2 days ago. Grant sat at a conference table, flanked by 2 board members. Calm, confident, arrogant. He was speaking into a phone recorder. Once the acquisition clears, move the rest of the funds offshore. Cole will take the fall for the leak. Rachel won't be a problem. We'll neutralize her after compliance signs off. Rachel's hand flew to her mouth. Tears filled her eyes but didn't fall. Another voice asked, and the husband? Grant smirked. Collateral damage. I paused the video. Rachel looked at me through a fog of shattered trust and burning fury. He's going to kill us, she whispered. No, I said. My voice was cold. He tried. Her eyes widened at the tone. I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't running. For the first time, the path forward wasn't a blur of panic. It was clear. We're going to expose him, I said. And we're going to make sure he never hurts anyone again. Rachel's breathing slowed. She nodded once, a slow, deliberate motion. And in that dim, broken shack, the air on us shifted. Fear dissolved. Something stronger took its place. Outside, flashlights continued their search. We waited. We planned. We prepared to step out of the shadows, not as victims, but as the people who would end this. Because Grant had made one fatal mistake. He underestimated us. And now, we had his confession. On video, undeniable, unstoppable. Rachel met my eyes. What do we do first? I closed the laptop, the flash drive still inside. First, I whispered, we survived the night.